All right, man. I've been hearing a lot of bad things about WWE, but let's see what this young lady has to say.
I attended the Monday Night Raw premiere on Netflix, the beginning of a new era according to Triple H. I remember sitting there excited, not knowing that from that moment on, my somewhat recent rediscovered enjoyment of WWE would quickly start dying again. That exactly a year later, I wouldn't even be watching the product at all because it felt like a chore and even torture at times. This is why I stopped watching WWE. Hey guys, this is Fran, and I just started this wrestling channel to share some of my hot takes, opinions, and possibly some show reviews. So feel free to subscribe if you enjoy the video, and if you don't enjoy it, subscribe anyways. Okay, let's get started. Number 1. Too corporate and greedy. Triple H told me this was the start of a new era, and he wasn't lying. It was indeed a new era of stupid expensive ticket prices and excessive ad placements. Some call it the ruthless depression or the attitude era. You had The Rock bragging about making history on the Netflix debut show being the largest arena gate in WWE history. Basically saying, we sold tickets at a stupid expensive price and y'all paid for it. And everyone clapped and cheered, including me, because I didn't know what that meant, so I just clapped like a bot because everyone else did. For this show, I
Yeah. Well, if you're old enough, what your thirties and up, you should know about WWE. Well, WWF and WCW. I'm gonna say this right now because I'm always asking myself this question: WCW or WWF? And I'm like, both were great at the time, but I'm always like, I feel like WWE is like by a point or like half a point. So I would, what I mean, I'm always battling myself like which one. Which in reality, you can appreciate both, which I do, but it's like I don't know. WCW like kind of like this kind of so I'd say about half a point over WWF for me. But it's a great topic. Like which one would you? Even though a lot of the wrestlers they did go back and forward, back in the day, but I don't know. It's like both of them was great at their peak, but I'm always kind of seem like I'm always favoring WCW just like by a hair. So both great. And then Vince McMahon ended up buying WCW. Of course, if he was there, we all know once that happened, everything went downhill. But both was great company. So I mean, me personally, you need to be a fan of both. Because again, it's the wrestlers right that made the corporations that made the companies, but both companies was great. But I tend to seem like I favor in WCW just by a hair. So
had nosebleed tickets, and each ticket was still like $250 plus fees, of course. And honestly, looking back at it, I deeply regret paying so much for it. I recently compared different WWE tickets from the last few years, including some shows I attended, and the prices almost double. Raising ticket prices like this sucks, especially now that it feels like a lot of us are struggling with almost everything getting more and more expensive. It just feels like they're pricing out regular fans, not just from special events like WrestleMania, but even from the weekly shows. You know what's the worst part? Paying so much just for mediocre booking and mediocre wrestling. That's the sad part. And honestly, this is why I appreciate AEW when it comes to ticket prices. I have been to multiple shows and even pay-per-views, and their ticket prices were super accessible for everyone, and I got to sit so close to the ring.
yeah, this to be fair, I've never been to an actual WCW or WWF show, but the AEW, like she just brought that up right now, which is kicking butt, and a lot of people is loving AEW. I know what's the other one? I forgot the other company, but yeah, I hear a lot of praise about AEW. Now, what's the other one? ECW. I watched uh, I watched matches online at the time because I ain't know anything about ECW until like later on. But if you know everybody, if you know, everybody know about Rhino. So he's the one that caught my attention. Like, oh, what's going on? Then of course they had other wrestlers that came from ECW and went to WWF. The Dudley Boys. Was it Doug? I forgot the guy. It was three of them originally, but Doug Holly. I think I can't forgive me for forgetting his name, but the scrawny guy that was on was it Bubba Dudley? Yeah. So yeah, so there's some crazy matches that was going on in ECW, and I think they went out of business, or they got bought out, and then they just shut down the company. but they no longer around. But yeah, ECW. That's for the hardcore wrestling fans. They ain't know nothing about them until later on. Then by the time I found out about them, they was in probably like so many years later, then they end up just going out of business. But even ECW is putting in work. But yeah, I'm gonna definitely check one out. But I'm gonna say this right now, like I haven't watched WWE, and once it went to WWE, that's when like everything started to just fizzle out. But I mean, I watched like a couple snippets here and there, like WWE matches. It's like I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling it. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same flavor, the same charisma as back, the Attitude Era, and then like in WCW. It's just, I mean, nothing wrong with I appreciate that they're including a lot of women now, because back then, I'm not gonna get into that because if you know, a lot of women back then, they wasn't just wrestling, if you know what I'm saying. So they was doing some extra stuff as well. But I like the fact that they actually included a lot of these women wrestlers. I really appreciate them doing that. So, and they've been fighting for a long time to really be taken serious and stuff like this. But it's just not the same. You can't compare. I mean, you can compare it, but it'd be criminal. Like you can't compare the wrestlers from WWF to the ones that's on WWE. Like, you got John Cena. Yeah, like you know, even though John Cena been wrestling, they all been wrestling for a long time. But he's already gone. But the new ones, so you can't compare the ones from WWF to WWE. It's not the same. It's not the same. You know what I mean? That was like hardcore wrestling back then. So now it's all scripted and they're not really wrestling, and it's not the same. So if you grew up in that time in the '90s, the early 2000s, oh yeah, that was the best. The wrestling was, and that's the best it's ever going to be. I don't know about AEW. They still doing their thing, but as far as like now it's just WWE. That's the biggest one still. But at some point in time, they're not gonna be around. They're gonna shut it down because I keep hearing bad stuff, and I'm watching these videos. I'm seeing the seats. A lot of the seats are empty. That was at one of the WrestleManias. I'm like, this is WrestleMania. Like I had to double check. I'm like, yeah, this is WrestleMania. Man, it was so many empty seats at that WrestleMania. It was crazy.
Regarding the ads, do I even need to say anything? They look terrible on the mat and they are super distracting. Especially whenever a brand sponsors a specific match, they love to plaster the logo everywhere on the LED barriers and ring posts. Do you guys remember this WrestleMania match? Just cringe. This one over here was just sad, not gonna lie. Shout out to the $10 Spirit Halloween costumes, I guess. One of the worst things for me has to be the Slim Jim tables. Especially when you have the commentators acknowledging them and basically saying things like, oh, X person just went through the Slim Jim tables. Are they being serious right now? Number 2. Boring matches. I know that for a lot of people, promos and stories are the most important thing, but I personally have always been more of an in-ring performance fan first. For some reason, I started to get bored with most of the matches. Being totally honest, a big part of it was that I started to watch more AEW here and there. It was hard not to compare the matches between both companies. I could easily find a better match on a weekly Dynamite than on a WWE pay-per-view, because I refuse to call them PLEs, by the way. Also, I hate the fact that there's rarely any blood. Everything feels overly safe. There's barely enough wrestling, even though the shows are like 3 hours long. Number 3, repetitive promos. Some promos literally made me become less invested in wrestlers that I really like, who just repeat the same thing over and over every week. Wrestlers like Rhea Ripley, for example. I know everyone knows CM Punk is good on the mic, but most of his promos since arriving to WWE had felt watered down, at least for me. There are also wrestlers like Cody Rhodes, who just say a lot of words but without any substance. Or this guy right here. But don't worry, we will talk about him later in the video. It also doesn't help that a lot of the wrestlers aren't too good on the mic, especially when WWE is supposed to be more focused on the characters and promos. They had me skipping these pointless promos constantly because it feels like they just don't advance the plot most of the time. I don't understand why they're repeating them so often instead of replacing some of them with fun or exciting segments between the wrestlers. It just feels like they just put as many promos as possible because they need filler segments in the unnecessarily long shows. Number 4, bad booking. I know I said that the wrestling itself is more important to me, but don't get me wrong. I do think that a good story is very important as well. They complement each other. But WWE likes to push people because of a catchphrase, song, or movement they do rather than because they're good in the ring or good at promos. It seems that they're obsessed with creating moments that go viral on social media so they can later brag about the views. For instance, they they keep putting celebrities on shows when they're already limited to like 4 or 5 matches in the pay-per-views. Sometimes they drag.
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with it. They've been doing it, right? I mean, again, WCW, WWF, they had Mike Tyson, Dennis Rodman, they had Shaq. So they've been doing that, but they're doing that more now because they know they're losing the fans, so they're trying to just they're getting these streamers, which it's just a different time, right? Nothing wrong with that, but they're starting. It's more of these online influencers that's in WWE that's actual than more than actual just actual wrestlers. So that's the first sign that you know that they're losing. I mean, obviously you can see the empty seats, right? But that's how you know they're losing the fans because they're starting to put influences in there. Like what's the one guy? I forgot the one white guy name. His brother's a boxer or whatever, but the older one is I can't think of his name. But you guys know what I'm talking about with the Prime energy drink. That guy, he's on the roster. He's not just one time. No, he's actually on the roster, which is cool. If they can wrestle, they can wrestle. But it's starting to become more influencers on in WWE than actual regular wrestlers. So that's the first sign of the company going. And then, they raise the ticket prices. The scripts are terrible. Fans they're just losing interest. That's just really what it is. So
Stories for months or even for a year. They do rematches back to back without moving the story forward in any way. For example, at first I thought the John Cena turn was exciting, but they fumbled it pretty fast with the promos and the feud. Just felt like there were no plans. WrestleMania was one of the last straws for me. They had Gunther tap to Jey Uso in like 3 seconds. I don't even want to talk about the match between Cody and John Cena with Travis Scott interfering. The Rock completely disappeared from the story. Then a month later, Gunther was having a competitive match with Pat McAfee, okay? Another thing is that the champions or top stars would rarely wrestle or defend the titles. A lot of people like Roman Reigns, for example, but I hated that when I was first getting back into WWE, he was barely on TV and they kept running back Roman versus Brock, the whole bloodline story in general. I never got into it because it just felt overdone and dragged out. And as someone who used to watch during the Ruthless Aggression, I was just used to seeing wrestlers like Batista, The Undertaker, Rey Mysterio on a weekly basis. Granted, the roster was stacked, but my point still stands. Now we have some honorable mentions.
yeah, now that I think about it, all the original WWF wrestlers, a lot of them went to AEW. Was it AD? It's another. I can't think of the other one, but WWE owns that company as well. But they went to the other wrestling company. I'm not sure. I hope I'm saying the right company. I don't know it's AEW, but it's another one too. Um, Next to AEW. But a lot of those OGs, they went to the other company because they know it's like, okay, this ain't it. Let me go where it's happening, where it's hot. So even though it's like a smaller crowd, not really, but it's smaller than W. How much? Because WWF they be getting these huge ass arenas or whatever. But anyway, they be, every time I watch a highlight or something, that arena always packed. No matter what it is, the arena's always packed. Now, granted, it's not as big, but it doesn't matter. Like they have hardcore fans there, and it's always packed. So, and they be jumping. You can feel the energy, and I'm like, man, these people, this is where it's at. You see all the OG wrestlers there. You know what I mean? The ones that didn't really, that the ones who actually retired, of course, but the ones who still active, no, they still over there. Dudley Boys and Hardy Boys. Like, oh yeah, this is where it's at. So. If you're gonna take a pay cut, but at the end of the day, it's like the company is growing. So regardless how much your contract was with WWE, it's like, okay. Well, I go over here to this other company that's new and is actually popping. They got a huge fan base. I'll take a pay cut to go over there and then have some consistent to where I can continue my career and not be some washed up wrestler that they just kind of they throw in there every now and then. Like these guys are consistently wrestling. They have matches on the regular and the fans love them. Sting, and it's yeah, there you go. Those are OGs. That's the thing about it. WWE don't really have any OGs that's still in WWE. Because if they had the OGs that quite a bit of them that's still there, they can pass the torch. But none of them was passed the torch. Now, granted, you have a lot of them. Their dads or their mom used to wrestle for when it was back in the day. But it's not enough for the OGs as they're mentoring these young wrestlers. You can tell because look how they wrestle. Look how the first thing is a promo. It's like how long you been with WWE? Like first of all, your promo should be already pretty good. And then when you come to they get you if you get a contract with WWE, it's always something you can tweak, right? But that should pretty much already be set because they wrestle they're with other smaller companies before they get picked up. But not saying all of them get picked up, but the ones who do get picked up, they've been wrestling before WWE. So it's not like if they get picked up tomorrow, you see a new wrestler. They not new. They new to WWE, but they've been wrestling for years before then. So again, they just don't have enough OGs that's passing on the torch to them. You can just tell, bro. It's like, where's your mentors? You know what I mean? You got some that's still wrestling, like like Big Show, he's still wrestling or whatever, but a lot of them not there because if they're still active, they go to they're at the other company. Like I told you guys before, with the Hardy Boys and Dudley Boys and Sting and all them other guys. They over there, so they not gonna teach the new people, the new wrestlers, what to do and how to get better at their craft. So they on their own. You can just look at the way they wrestle, and then they mic how they operate the crowd and stuff like that. They don't have that personality. It's like they don't have it. So how can they? I mean, how can they get a personality if they can't get it from a pro? Like they learn all this stuff on their own. Like they can, some of them can wrestle okay, but when it come down to promo, they don't have it. It's like, what is this? You know what I mean? So there you go.
Showing too much behind the scenes. With the Unreal show and official WWE podcast, wrestlers too just don't like it. We all know wrestling is scripted, but the fact that the company itself is putting this content out and promoting it just feels weird. It's just
See, that's the thing too. That what made wrestling special. What let's just say, just entertainment in general. It can be acting or whatever, because that's the thing too. Like before the internet, that wasn't around back then. Like when we had those two companies that were just out there, just shutting everything down. You either had you either had cable TV or you wasn't watching it, or you had somebody, a friend or something. We would go into our friend's house and we'll watch, like all the wrestling matches. But you either had cable, and then we eventually got cable. But anyway, you either got a friend or a family member that got cable, or you better have cable at home, or you ain't watching. You ain't watching no wrestling nothing like that. So we didn't have the internet nothing like that. So the fact that we had limited access to see our favorite wrestlers, so that made it even more special. And on top of that, to go, because now you got stream, you don't gotta go nowhere. You can stay at home and watch your movies, a TV show, whatever. You ain't gotta go nowhere. Back then, if you wanted to see them, you had to go. And no, you had to go. You can watch it on TV, right? But that made the personal experience even better, because you only got two options to see them. Either you watch it when they got like a show, you gotta have cable, which a lot of people didn't have back then, or you actually go to a live show. So that just made the experience even more because you had limited access to them. You wouldn't, like now, like that's when I started seeing them doing that. Like, I mean, I know you got social media, but it's like certain things you just can't put everything on social media. So when I started seeing them, oh yeah, I got an Instagram and this and that. I was like, nah, because I don't want to have easy access to you, if that makes sense. Because if you do something all the time, then you'll get bored of it eventually. So if I see Booker T, and he got, of course he got all social media and that, but if he's easily accessible, that that fan, that's me being a fan, the excitement from being a fan of Booker T, it will go away because I'm so used to seeing him. All I have easy access to, I can just get on my phone and see what Booker T up to today or whatever. Not saying he posts all the time, I'm just using him as an example. But if I have easy access to him at any given will, then my excitement for him will dwindle down. It'll be watered down because I see him all the time. I always on the social media. He always doing this. He always doing that. I know where he's at. He's always posting. Where you can meet him, this and that. So that eventually will go away. That's why, even though you say that, okay, if I meet Beyonce, I'm just gonna treat her like a regular person. Will you? Will you really treat her like a regular person, or will you fan out? Because I've been in situations like that, like, okay, well, yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool. And then I meet the person, and, I meet him in person, like, oh, my body just switch up on me. I have no control of it. So over me dealing with that, over the years, I learned to cut it short because, of course, there's so much you want to ask them, so much you want the interaction. You want to get so much out of him, and then on top of that, you don't have a lot of time. So that's when You get excited, you get anxiety, all this stuff start to kick in because you may not see this person ever again. So that's why was it the fan craze or whatever they call it? That's a real thing because no matter how cool you are or whatever, you see Chris Brown. You never seen Chris Brown ever in your life, except if he was on TV. You probably never went to none of his concerts, but you never actually met him, face to face. And no matter how cool you are, or whatever, oh man, I don't care about him. Shit. I treat him like a regular person. You say that until you actually meet him. So if you meet Chris Brown at a goddamn burger joint nowhere, like in the hood or something like that, some regular burger restaurant. You think you're gonna fan out? You gonna fan out, and that's the thing about it too. You probably not even a Chris Brown, supporter. I mean, don't get me wrong, he makes some great music, but that don't mean you just a fan. You like his work, but you don't even have to be a legitimate fan of his. But if you were to meet him at some random burger joint, you gonna fan out. You had to. That takes time to get used to. That's why a lot of these celebrities, when they have their kids, and then the fans find out about their kids and they start interacting with them. It's like, how do you deal with this? Like they grew up in that environment, so they used to it. They used to hang around Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Denzel Washington. They used because they grew up in there. They kids grew up with their kids, so they've been around it all their life. So that's why they have the they have the ability to look at them as regular people. They have that privilege because they grew up with them. Unlike somebody like me, like I ran into quite a bit of celebrity, but not a whole lot. But especially, I don't have no access to any celebrities like that. So if I want to run into a high profile celebrity, oh yeah, my body gonna start to act crazy. So it's your responsibility to take control of that and then just minimize it because there's a lot that's going on. But this is common stuff, man. It's common.
That's too much for my taste. Music. WWE's choice of music for pay-per-views and weekly shows just doesn't fit wrestling in my opinion. Maybe because like I mentioned earlier, I grew up during the Ruthless Aggression era, or just my own personal music taste. But I feel like wrestling fits better with rock music. For example, the SmackDown theme song is just so meh to me. For the wrestlers, the music all sounds generic and similar to each other because I can't even tell who's coming out most of the time. Saudi Arabia. I know WWE has been making deals with Saudi Arabia for years, but it's just so corny every time they try to glaze it super hard, talking about how amazing and progressive the kingdom of Saudi Arabia is. Yeah, it's so progressive that they suppress freedom of speech and delete people from Earth if you criticize the government or royal family. Not to mention they force women to look like Power Rangers during the shows, can't show any symbols they deem offensive, among other things. I had read a few things before, but the more I researched in depth about this shitty government, the more infuriating it was. It's WWE, or should I say TKO, that broke that they need to sell their soul for money. It was so disappointing seeing CM Punk go there after he was always so outspoken about it. He goes to the No Kings protest, but I guess that doesn't include the King of Saudi Arabia. Triple H can't take any criticism. When he said, "Fuck off being a critic, be a fan," it annoyed me so much because it reminded me of the current mindset some people have whenever someone is being critical of a bad movie or a bad show. I'm looking at you, Star Wars fans. This is why these big companies don't put any effort in making a decent product, because they know there will always be people who will just consume the product like an NPC, regardless of if it's bad. Pat Mac.
Okay. Something's happening that's bad, but whenever you start to see a company start to partner with other brands, you gotta understand if you're a business owner, you have 100% of the company, and you start gaining partners, right? Like, hey, I wanna be included into your business, Robert, whatever. You have to give away some authority to that partner. So whenever you start seeing a company like WWE and they have I don't know how many partners, they're losing control of the company. And you gotta remember, they're doing that to make money. They're not partnering with WWE just for the fun of it. They're not doing it for fun. They're doing it for funds. So when you start linking, especially like nothing wrong with it, they have their own thing, right? I'm not knocking them as a country, but what is WWE doing partnering with, you know, with a whole nother country like Saudi Arabia? It's like what we wrestling or we doing something with oil or both? Like what's going on? That's odd. So that's a red flag. Wrestling is that, I know wrestling happening all over the world, right? But as far as WAB, we know that's an American company. It's been an American company since the beginning of time up until now. So when I heard about WWE partnering with other companies, I'm like, okay, I see what, because it's the same thing. It's just a different company going through it. They keep partnering. They keep partnering. Of course, WWE is going under. So I already know they're gonna pull the same play. So Saudi Arabia gonna come to us and say, hey, you guys not doing so good this year. You need some help or whatever. They're gonna be like, oh no, we're okay. They're gonna try to fight it off because they know what's gonna happen. And then at some point in time, they're gonna wear them down. Say, hey, we can help you out with the company if you just, if you let us help you a little bit more. Okay, all right. Well, this is how much we need. We doing bad. We can just get this much. They'll save us, for the next 2, 3 years, whatever. They're gonna be okay. Here's the money, but we're gonna need more ownership. So as soon as they get over that 50%, they could be 50% 50.50%. That's it. You lost. So that's what's gonna happen with WWE, and then all the stuff they have. I mean, they don't care, right? They just doing it because they're gonna make a profit. They're just gonna just milk the WWE. They don't know nothing about American wrestling. They don't know nothing at all. So all they're gonna do is just own the company. They're gonna run it down to the. They're gonna run it to the ground. Because normally what happens, they just end up just firing everybody who works at the company and replace them with their own people. And even if they don't replace, the people that's running the well that's working for the company, they'll just whatever they do, they got to go to them. Say, hey, we want to go over here, we want to go, I don't know, we want to go to Canada for the WrestleMania. They got, oh, before we do that, let's go ask the Saudis. Hey, we want to take a WrestleMania to Canada this year. No, we can't do that. Bring it back. So that's what's going to happen. So, because they lost majority of control, and then at the end of the day, they probably get bored of it, or something they have to sell it to some other company. So I hope it doesn't happen, but by them partnering with all these random companies, that's what's going to happen. So it's sad. It's sad, if it does happen. Of course, it'd be terrible, but that's why I see why all the OG wrestlers they went to the other company because they already know, okay, this company dying out, the ship's sinking. Let me get out of here. So that was the first red flag I saw. I'm like, why all the wrestlers going to the other company? And then I started seeing all them empty seats, and then I started seeing, oh, we're partnering with this, we're partnering with this company, this company. I'm like, okay, I see where it's going. So Triple H, I mean, at the end of the day, he has control, but he don't know what the hell he's doing. Let's be honest. Even though he's been wrestling for I don't know how long, that's the thing about him. Not saying Vince is no one's perfect, right? But I know Vince has some shady stuff going on. But let's be honest, Vince was doing some crazy stuff back then. He kept us all entertained. I'll say that. I know he got some issues and stuff like that, but it me personally seeing all the stuff Vince has done, and then him no longer being there, I understand being in entertainment, especially you're in charge of it, you have to be a little off. So Vince, he's a little off for a reason. I understand why he's a little off because he's trying to figure it out every time he has start a new show. He always had to figure out how to keep the fans engaged, and it's not easy. So I understand why he's a little off because all the stuff he's been doing since he took over the company from his dad all the way up until they kicked him out. I understand, but regardless of what you think about Vince, did he or did he not keep us entertained? Remember, I started watching that in the '90s, and I ain't started watching that until after it turned to WWE. Like I probably watched it for a little bit, but pretty much when they turned it to WWE, that's when I was like, it started to kind of fizzle out for me. But when Stone Cold, The Rock, Chris Jericho, 1, 2, 3, like all these, the main, and of course they did the WCW, WWF, was it WWE? I think it was, or Elf. Whenever they merged, of course I stuck around, during that time. But as time went on, it started to fizzle out, because it just was that was it. So he did a damn good job keeping everybody entertained, and they was making. I think I looked it up. They was making $500 million a year at one point. And of course, I know it started to increase from there. But it takes so much work to keep a business like that going. You know what I mean? So I respect him for it. Like I said, I don't know him from a can of paint, but the man knew what he was doing. So Vince was operating everything behind the scenes. Of course, he came out in front of the camera, but he was doing everything behind the scenes to keep the business running. Nobody talks about. So, of course, somebody like Triple H, who doesn't, I mean, he knows the business, right? But he don't know the business as far as how to run it. And I mean, now he's doing it, but he was a wrestler. He's been wrestling. He just know the business side of being a wrestler. But he didn't know the business side of running a wrestling company. Two different things. So that's why he's failing, because he doesn't have that guidance. He doesn't have a clear direction. He's trying to survive. He's drowning. So when he's panicking, was it like Rick Ross says, don't panic. He's panicking. So when you panic, that's when you start getting the vultures to come in and start to get at you. It's like, you need a car. So you're getting that Honda Accord or that Toyota Camry, and this car is going to do right by you. It's going to last forever. You panic. Instead of you getting the car that is going to do right by you, get some random ass fucking 2003 Cadillac Escalade. Terrible investment, but you're not thinking clearly. You're not seeing clearly when you're in panic mode. You just all over the place. That's why now it makes sense to me what's going on. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? Because every time I do a checkup on WWE, it's always something new. It's like random. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. So again, Triple H know the company is going under. He don't know what to do. He's in survival mode, so he's just doing anything he can to try to keep the business up afloat. But what he's doing is helping the business sink even faster. So that's the last thing you want to do, is start to give up ownership, well, bits of it, to other random companies that has nothing to do with wrestling. Saudi ain't got nothing to do with WWE. Like, it's random. You know what I'm saying? It's random. So yeah, man, it sucks. But again, thanks to the internet, you can always watch the old matches. That's to this day. So I watched one a couple days ago, and that was like I think in the early '90s, like it was a WWF. Like, man, I never, but again, thanks to the internet, I can watch whatever match that was filmed. So you can watch them classic matches, but other than that, it's like I don't know, man. It ain't looking good, and especially when you have major events like WrestleMania, and then nobody really going to WrestleMania no more. It's like, if anything, that was every kid's dream to go to WrestleMania at least once. So for you to have a show, WrestleMania being the biggest wrestling show ever, and nobody really going to it, that's I don't know, that's pretty much it. I don't think it's even a way you can bounce back from that, because again, all the original wrestlers, all the the big time wrestlers, they went to the other company. So, man.
Coffee. I cringed at his sounds, dances, and jokes every single time, but most importantly at his commentary, if you can even call it that. Whenever he opened his mouth, he literally ruined the match for me in real time, and I couldn't concentrate because I felt like I was losing brain cells by the minute, and I feel like he just kept getting worse as time went by. And finally, my fifth reason, or more like my 13th reason, if you know what I mean. Number 5. Jey Uso and his entrance. WWE loves to find something that gets a reaction, then beat it to the ground until it means nothing, like Jey Uso's cheating. The first time I saw it, I thought it was super dumb, but the more it kept happening, even during matches or when he was running it back, it was just taking it too far, and I got tired of it instantly. I never felt like Jey was a character I could take seriously, and I couldn't believe when he won the Royal Rumble, then went on to beat Gunther in the way I mentioned earlier, and ultimately becoming the world champion. I witnessed the Jeet entrance in person during the Netflix debut show, and as I sat in my seat, I was so triggered, and it felt like torture hearing and seeing thousands of people yeeting with him. This is a visual representation of how I felt. I would literally skip every segment he was in because I hated his dumb promos and I didn't like his matches either. They kept over pushing him, which really turned me off from watching, among the other reasons I already went over. By the end of the year, Survivor Series was in my city and you couldn't pay me to attend the show. Okay, maybe if you offered me at least $500 plus free food, then maybe I would have gone. That's how much WWE fatigue I had. I don't know if I'm ever gonna watch WWE again regularly. I just watch reviews and clips from time to time where I just end up confirming my opinion. Just not good. But oh well. Well, that was it for today's video, guys, and I hope you enjoy it. And remember, this is just my wrestling opinion that no one asked for, but I would love to know your opinions as well. So leave a comment below. Until next time, see ya.
Yeah, that's a cool little video, but she's one of many people that's been dropping videos about the downfall of WWE. So I know she's pretty young, so she definitely did the early version of WWE. She got a bit of that, but like I said, you got the internet now, so whether you was around or not, you can just get on YouTube and you can watch any video you want. I know WWE has their own network on top of that as well, but you know you got to pay for that. But if you want to, watch for free, just get on YouTube. Um, Not surprised, but like I said, I haven't watched, and that's the thing too. I haven't watched a whole show in years. So it just I don't know. It was just a natural fall off for me. It's just like I just stopped watching it because it's the new talent that was coming in. It's like what's all this colorful stuff and RGB. I'm like, I wasn't feeling it. So somebody like me who's I'm not an OG because that's sort of like in the '70s or something. I started off in the '90s, but pretty much called me an OG, somewhat like an OG. But yeah, I started watching in the '90s, but it's just completely different compared to when I started watching. But I mean, don't get me wrong, you got some good wrestlers, but it's just I mean, I said I grew it, but it just I can't get with the new WWE, man. It's not my flavor. So yeah, but if you guys, if you're a fan of wrestling, let me know your favorite wrestling company or one of your favorite matches. And if anything, I'll check it out myself on YouTube because so many matches that happen, and didn't watch all of them, but yeah, WCW and WWF, they was going at it back in the day, man. It's just a time to be alive. But never went to an actual match, sadly. But if I can go back in time, I definitely would do it. But yeah, it's just one of them things. That's the thing about this. Not saying you gotta be rich, but just having money, right? Just you're able to do that. So yeah, but it's a great video, man. Oh, I'll leave her a channel down below. I don't want to be that guy, but if you guys like the video, if you didn't, let me know. Voice your opinion down below. If you can donate something to my cash app, I appreciate you. And yeah, until next time.